So, welcome to the Eric Show. I'm your host, Eric Moser. And before we begin, let's just begin up with, is there anything wrong with being a 30-year-old version? That is all what we are going to be talking about today. So let's begin the Eric Show. Hello. Oh, my final thoughts. Yeah, MySpace was my favorite one. But since there's a new owner and he's changing it and mostly famous people and music and all that fun stuff, now it's not my favorite. I still love it, but it's not my favorite. Alright? Time change. I love change. Is the Eric Show. Social network. Thanks for watching and see you tomorrow. Hello everyone, I'm your wonderful host, Eric Moser, but tonight, I'm not just pure Eric Moser, I am your $1,000,000 champion, Eric Moser. Hello, yes, I am your $1,000,000 champion tonight, and this is the Eric Show, all about WrestleMania 27. Hi, welcome to the Eric Show, a special edition of the Eric Show. Never did this one in my 2 years or 2 seasons doing the Eric Show. It's a history episode of the Eric Show. It's all about celebrating 50 years of the Freedom Riders. The Freedom Riders, and I grabbed this piece of paper to, because I have a lot of names and towns and dates that I want to say correctly, so I would not like to say it incorrectly for you wonderful peeps. Alright, so this is why I have this piece of paper in my hand. The Freedom Riders were a very brave group of people. Alright, so I have to give a hand of applause to the Freedom Riders right now. I really have to. The Freedom Riders was a very brave group of people, and I would have to team up with them if I were born in that time. Alright, the Freedom Riders were a civil rights activist. Sorry about that. The Freedom Riders was a civil rights activist who rode interstate buses into the segregated southern United States to test the United States Supreme Court decision Bolton versus Virginia of 1960. Alright, so that is why the Freedom Riders went and became the world-known Freedom Riders. And we are celebrating today 50 years of the Freedom Riders. The first Freedom Ride left Washington, D.C. on May 1st, 1961, and was scheduled to arrive in New Orleans on May 17th. That was the first Freedom Ride. Alright, the first Freedom Ride left Washington, D.C. and was scheduled to go into New Orleans because obviously they both have different laws about segregated buses. That's the Freedom Rider. After the commercial break, more on the Freedom Rider. Alright? This is celebrating 50 years of the Freedom Rider. we are back with the Eric Show, celebrating 50 years of the Freedom Riders. So the Freedom Riders was a civil rights movement in the racial time. It was Bolton versus Virginia had outlawed racial segregation in restaurants and waiting rooms in terminal serving buses that crossed state lines. 5 years later, 5 years prior to the Bolton ruling, the Interstate Commerce Commission had issued a ruling in Sarah Key versus Caroline Coat Company that had explicitly denounced the Plessy versus Ferguson doctrine of separate but equal in interstate bus travel, but the ICE had failed to enforce its own ruling, and those Jim Crow travel laws remain in force throughout the South. So our lawmakers back in the day kept making these laws, but no one enforced them enough that people actually listened to them. So they just failed. So we keep fighting, and we keep fighting. It's what the Freedom Riders did. The Freedom Riders set out to challenge this status quo by riding various forms of public transportation in the South. To challenge local laws or customs that enforce segregation, the Freedom Riders, and the violent reaction they provoked plastered the credibility of the American civil rights movement and called national attention to the violent disgrace. For the law that was used to enforce segregation in the southern United States, riders were arrested for trespassing and unlawful assembly and violating state and local Jim Crow laws, along with other alleged offenses. So the Freedom Riders set for a challenge. They challenged to change the laws to make everyone equal. Did it work? That's up to you. That's your opinion. Alright? I think it didn't work. Alright? But that's a whole different topic. Most of the subsequent riots were sponsored by the Congress of Racial Equality, which is CORE, while others belonged to the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee, which is SNCC, SNCC, which pronounced SNCC. The Freedom Riders followed on a here or dramatic sit-in against segregated lunch counters conducted by students and youth throughout the South and boycotts. Beginning in 1960. So they tried boycotts, they tried riding public transportation, they tried a lot of things. Some worked, some didn't. That is all for now. When we come back, more on celebrating 50 years of the Freedom Riders. Welcome back to the Eric Show, celebrating 50 years of the Freedom Riders. The United States Supreme Court decision in Bolton versus Virginia granted interstate travelers the legal right to cause local segregation. Ordinance regarding interstate transportation faculty, but the Freedom Riders' rights were not enforced. Then their actions were considered a criminal act throughout most of the South. For example, upon the Riders' revival in Mississippi, their journey ended with imprisonment for exercising their legal rights in interstate travel, Similar arrests took place in other southern cities. So the Supreme Court finally made a decision, alright? But their decision wasn't enforced. So, people were still being racist, and the colored people were still getting imprisonment for action on their rights, which I personally think is wrong. Alright? I think if we want to be called the #1 country, alright, where people come here to have freedom, then look at our history. Alright, we took history. I'm sorry about that. We took freedom away from certain groups just because of their color. That is wrong, and that I'm sorry. We cannot deserve. We don't deserve to call up the #1 country for what happened. Let's move on. The Freedom Riders was inspired by the 1944 Journey of Recognition, led by the civil rights activists Bayhawk Watson and George Hauser. So the Freedom Riders were, what that was, were inspired, that's the word, I'm sorry about that, was inspired by the two civil rights activists. Okay, I think that is great. Alright, we need people like that. I think we needed more than that. I still think something a little fishy, but when I say, let's go back to my last comment. When I say a little fishy, I mean people are still racist. We can't get racist out of our country, then we are not the #1 country. That is all I have for now. But we must take a commercial break. When we come back, more on celebrating 50 years of the Freedom Riders. We are back with the Eric Show, celebrating 50 years of the Freedom Riders. Alright, so, let's continue on some history. The first Freedom Ride began on May 1st, 1961, led by Corps Director James Farmer, sorry about that. It was 7 black, 6 white, left to Washington, D.C. on a Greyhound and Trailway buses. The plan was to ride through Virginia and the Carolinas, Georgia, Alabama, and Mississippi, ending with a rally in New Orleans, Louisiana. Most of the riders were from Corps and arranged bail for those who were arrested. Only minor trouble was encountered in Virginia and North Carolina, but John Lewis was attacked in Whitehall, South Carolina, and some of the riders were arrested in Charlotte, North Carolina, Winterboro, South Carolina, and Jackson, Mississippi. There was also a lot of mob violence in Anderson and Birmingham, which we know one of the greatest Martin Luther King stories that he wrote about the arrest and the mob violence. Now, just to finish celebrating 50 years, I would like to congratulate the 50 years of Freedom Riders, because them people, they were brave, and I like to celebrate brave people. Alright, not just brave people, just opinionated people. Alright, if these people would not stand up and fight what they believed in, that were not fair, then they wouldn't be opinionated. And I am doing this show not just to celebrate the 50 years of Freedom Riders. I'm doing it to celebrate how opinionated they were, how brave they were. We need more brave people like that. Yes, people talk about, oh, I hate President Obama, or I hate President Bush. That's why I'm voting independent now so far. But there are that talk, alright? But how about let's stop talking and let's do something. Alright? Let's look more into our nominees for president. Alright? Let's vote for people who we really like. I'm moving into my new movement. Let's vote independent. Alright? I'm sick of hearing we like President Bush. A year later, we hate President Bush. 1 year we like President Obama. 1 year later we hate President Obama. I hate it. Now it's vote independent for me. But let's do something about it. Let's not just sit there and talk shit. That's another reason why I'm celebrating the 50 years of the Freedom Riders. Because they did something. They stand up. They got up and fight for what was wrong. What they did, what all people did in our country back in those days, in 1960, 1970, 1950s, those days, what they did was wrong. That's my last word, whatever you want to call it, my final words. What they did was wrong. Now, when we come back, what's next for the Eric Show? Thanks for watching me celebrating 50 years of the Freedom Riders. I'm back with the Eric Show, celebrating 50 years of the Freedom Riders. This was a great episode of the Eric Show, a very different kind of episode of the Eric Show, celebrating, teaching people of the Freedom Riders and what they did. I just wanted to say real quick, thanks for watching the Eric Show, especially this episode. Thanks for watching, and thanks for learning what our country did and how people reacted to it. Not just color people didn't like what happened to them. Alright? There were white people there who didn't like what other whites were doing to color people. Not a lot. But there were some white people who didn't there were some white people that didn't like it and that did something. Alright? So thank you to the Freedom Riders for standing up for what you believe in. We need more people like that. Thank you, Freedom Riders, for actually teaching us, to having a piece of history so I could do on the Eric Show. And actually learn so I can teach my kids when I have them. So thank you, Freedom Riders. Thank you, Pete, for watching the Eric Show. And now, what is next for the Eric Show? Well, there is a lot. What is next for the Eric Show? What's next for the Eric Show? The next show for the Eric Show is the Eric Show Hot Topics. Now, it's not a full-on Hot Topic show. It's only have a few Hot Topics with a special co-host. I'm not sure who the co-hosts are going to be, but there will be a co-host that I'm trying to work for. Alright? Plus, upcoming Donald is the Best One shows. That is up next. That is all up next for the Eric Show. Also, look for, in August, this August, the Eric Show is going to go to a new network. New networks. Alright, the Eric Show is going to be on Donald is the Best One 1 week. Gonna be on, it's on my website. It's on the-eric-show.com. I'm not sure. I know 1 week is on Eric Cologne. On Donald is the Best One. 1 week it might go back to Eric Cologne 5. I'm not sure. 1 week, a brand new channel that I cannot say anything about. Alright? So that is what's new on the Eric Show. Thanks for watching, and thanks for hearing me and celebrating 50 years of the Freedom Riders. See you later.